this yesterday, you'll know Simon was on the boat with me and we were chatting, and apparently Churchill was first located up on this side of the river here, where we're coming up on. You'll see a building which is apparently just kind of one of the last buildings that's still in existence from when the town was located on this side. They moved it over to the other side just so it'd be a little more convenient, I guess, especially when they got the rail line put in. Probably notice on the cam the water's getting a little more choppy here. Still nothing too crazy, but the wind has picked up a little bit. I figured the first week or week and a half roughly that we were out here and getting things going, we were sort of out on the water every day working out the bugs and testing out the equipment and all that kind of stuff. But that's kind of when we had our windstorms, though, and weren't able to get out on the water. It sort of seemed like it was going to be a pretty common occurrence, but that was weeks ago, and we haven't really had another day that it's been too windy to be out on the water, which is awesome. It's like, especially in the winter, things start to turn. I know a lot more in September. We'll hang out here as long as possible, as long as the whales are here and the weather's not too crazy, but September is when it starts to really get bad, and through the winter it just howls out here. I was about 170 kilometers outside of Churchill, the cabin that I spent the winter at, and it did get windy out there. I was in the trees and stuff though, so I had some cover and it wasn't as bad. But when you did come back to town for supplies or anything like that, the closer you got to town, the more the wind was whipping. And in the winter too, it makes it so much more cold. It's crazy. It just peels the heat off you. Just have a comment here about the rail line, so I'm sure most people are familiar with that. It got knocked out this spring with all the flooding. We had a load of snow up here. I got to come back to town for the one big storm that we had, and it was something else. We didn't even get all the snow that they're projecting, which is insane, because if you would have seen the town, or if, you might be able to look up some photos online, it's unreal how much snow there was. So I couldn't imagine if we would have gotten it all, it would have been crazy. But we got winds up 120 kilometers an hour, and there's just 3-4 days there where you weren't going outside. Everything was closed, and and when people's doors, they'd open their door or their garage, and it just was a wall of snow, like top to bottom. Pretty crazy. There's big tunnels being dug into houses. Once the storm passed and people were actually able to get out and start doing their snow removal, yeah, they're having to build like tunnels basically that you could walk through to get up to the front door. It's crazy. There's spots that you could just walk up a snowbank up onto a roof. The apartment buildings here in town, they had a huge one that, yeah, you just casually just walk right up onto the roof on a 2-story building. So it's just nuts how much snow we got. I had to dig a few times trying to find comatics and sleds, and we had a boat down by the river, and so we were digging that out just so all the weight of the snow wasn't going to damage it at all. And I'm 6'1", and by the time I'd reached the bottom, I was throwing snow up over my head. So it kind of gives you an idea of just how much snow we got. And of course, this spring, when all that started to melt, then there was flooding and did a lot of damage to the river and the weir. And I was looking at photos. Some buddies in town here were texting me images while I was away, and there's spots with 8 feet of water, like a building, and they had the water right up to the soffit, right up to the edge of the roof. So it's pretty nuts. And then, yeah, that washed out the train line or the railway. So yeah, everybody's hoping that that's going to get dealt with and sorted out soon, and they're going to get that fixed up, because it has put a lot of pressure on the town in terms of getting supplies up, and especially things like propane. 75% of the town relies on propane to heat their homes, and currently there's enough to last to November. And even with the storage facility they have here, if they were able to top it off, that still wouldn't make it through the winter. So I think they kind of got a game plan in place, and they're sending some up by ship, and it's going to be enough to make it through the winter, which is good. But yeah, it just put a lot of stress on the town. Also issues, obviously, like things like food and stuff like that, and then as well as the tourism slowed down a lot this year. There's a lot of people that come to town on the train. It just kind of has to do with the experience of getting out to Churchill. I took it last year, and it's a long train ride from here to Thompson, which I believe is 400 kilometers. It took 16 hours on the train, so you're just puttering along, but it is cool. It's like a old passenger train, and so yeah, just the novelty of it, it's kind of fun. So a lot of people do book the train, and now obviously most of those people had to cancel, so things were or are a lot slower here in town than what they usually are. Oh wow, we got a ton of whales behind us right now. And I think there's some new developments too. I have had a hard time kind of keeping track. It's been pretty busy here in town, but I think they're kind of starting to get things figured out or sorted out, hopefully, as to what they're going to do and how they're going to go about fixing the train tracks. So that'll be awesome once that gets all sorted out. Just about in the sweet spot here, and still seeing quite a few whales around. See some more coming in behind us. So I just seen a big spy hop whale off in the distance, just shot straight up out of the water. something kind of crazy here regarding the winters too. One of the guys here in town, a buddy of mine, he's out a lot out on his trap line and stuff, and he's got some cabins, a few cabins out in the bush. He said the latest he's ever been able to make it out by skidoo was June, and there's obviously a lot of melting, and you're hitting a lot of bare patches, and having a kind of hopscotch along. But just the fact still that he's able to get out there in June by snowmobile, it's pretty crazy. I think this year they had a nice warm spring, so everything melted off pretty quickly. Had a question about the bears too. They're already starting to. You've got a few kicking around town right now. The polar bears. They're starting to make their way back. You can go online actually. I'm not sure what website it was, but I'm sure if you just Google it, you'll have no troubles finding it. But you can see currently where there's still ice out in the bay, and that'll be where a bunch of the polar bears are hanging out right now, trying to fatten up as much as they can before they gotta head back into land and wait it out until everything freezes up again. But yeah, there is some that have been making their way back, and as we get closer to the fall, there's going to be more and more showing up all the time. So right now we haven't had any come close enough for us to go check them out. I know, yeah, Hayley has seen them before. Hayley, she was on the boat last year, the captain of the Beluga boat. And yeah, I guess I like to say too, every time we do mention her, just make sure that you guys know she's thinking about everybody out there and wishes she could be here this year. And she says hi to all you guys and hi to all the belugas. But anyways, the bears, yeah, as time rolls on, we'll get more and more, and hopefully we'll get lucky and we'll get them close enough and I can head over and show you guys. There's been a few. Simon got a shot the other day of mom and some cubs, and on the Cape North and Cape South cams there's been some polar bears on there as well. Again, mom and two cubs, I believe, and they had one out swimming in the water the other day. If you guys like polar bears, then you'll definitely want to check out the polar cams. You can go on explore.org right now and look at the highlights and kind of see what's in store for you this year. It's super cool to watch. Definitely recommend it. it's kind of, I found nice being out on the river in the middle of the day. Well, I guess I also like the early mornings too, but this way, like we started today at 12:30, and it just kind of allows you to still get up fairly early, usually 6:45-ish, to get the day started. And I don't know, you just get some time in the middle of the day to, or in the early morning, I mean, to get a few things done. One thing I've noticed spending all this time on the boat, you get a little crick in your back, kind of sitting and bouncing around out here in the waves on the Zodiac. So I've been doing lots of stretching and different mobility exercises and things like that to help it out, and it definitely makes a difference. One thing I really like is, I don't know, maybe some of you have heard about it, is Kelly Starrett. He's known as a mobility expert, and he's got some great books. One of them that I read quite often and look back at is Becoming a Supple Leopard, and it's got good examples and stretches and different things you could do for pretty much your entire body. So yeah, I like to, this morning, flipping through that and getting a few good little stretches and things like that, and rolling on foam rollers and lacrosse balls and all those kinds of things. And yeah, it does make a huge difference. Loosens things up for when you're sitting out here 4 hours a day. Still got a handful of whales behind us, and I can see a few more coming. Clarity's not as good today, so it's kind of tough to see, but I'm spotting 4 or 5, somewhere around that number. Now there's for sure more than that. Good old Cockles Point, it hasn't failed us yet. It's been over a week now that we've been spending a lot of time in this area. I was down picking mussels last night. I had mentioned before, when the tide's out, it's crazy. The whales are so close to shore. I was on the side, on the bay, like out by, I don't know if you're familiar with Churchill at all. They have the complex overlooking the Hudson Bay. So I was kind of in that sort of area, actually probably closer to Cape Mary. And yeah, the whales, they're probably only, it's for sure less than 50 yards away from you off the shore. It's super close. There's a couple seals around too, and looked like they might have been chowing down on something. But yeah, pretty neat to be spending your evening just out picking mussels and getting to watch a bunch of whales out in front of you. getting more choppy out now. And it seems like maybe the whales, I don't know, maybe they kept on heading upstream towards Mosquito Point or something, but doesn't seem to be quite as many around. Closer to the port now. I guess we're probably a third of the way to the port from Cockles Point. Just kind of cruising along. Seems like there's a few more whales coming by. I thought maybe up in front of the port